A pleasant day to each and everyone, especially to you, ma'am. This is Marimar, Oclida, and I'm going to discuss now the chapter 10 of the subject Legal Aspects in Tourism and Hospitality, which is entitled The Laws Regulating Restaurants and Other Tourism-Oriented Establishments. So, before we dig into the topic, here are our learning objectives. First is to enumerate the responsibilities of a restaurant or similar establishment. Second is to identify the laws that governs restaurants, caterers, bars, health and fitness clubs, spas, and other entertainment outlets. And third is cite examples of issues and problems that may arise in restaurants, bars, and other tourism-oriented establishments. So, while many Filipino restaurants do not have very long lifespans, some reliable old brands are still very much around, owing much their stability to the consistency of the quality of their products and services and continuous patronage of various generations of Filipino families. So, entertaining in the Philippines is not only a ritual but a display of one's socioeconomic status, education, and hospitality. So, different kinds of entertainment outlets have emerged in the last 2 decades, catering to varied taste of the Filipinos and tourists. So, karaoke sing along bars, comedy bars, and ballroom dancing clubs have replaced the discotheques, folk houses, and nightclubs of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So, here are the list of um, tourism-oriented establishments. First, of course, is the restaurant, the department store, a shop, a sports and recreational club or center, a museum, a karaoke bar, a tertiary hospital, and a spa. So let's move on to the laws regulating caterers. So a caterer is defined as a person, firm, or association providing food and supplies and sometimes services for parties, weddings, and other social functions. So a caterer is defined as a provider of food and provisions. There are two kinds of catering services. First is the on-premise catering. So from the word on-premise catering, so it is inside the environment. In this type of catering, the caterer has his own banquet hall with an attached kitchen or production area. So the catering was happen in the environment or inter-establishment mismo. And the second kind of catering services is the off-premise catering. So from the word off-premise catering, it is outside their environment or outside their establishments. So for this type of catering, the caterer brings the complete services to the customers. It is a kind of banquet operation that takes place in a venue chosen by a client or in an airline, boat, industrial site, and other places. So, magdepende sa gusto sa client. So, this banquet service caters to various types of functions such as weddings, social events like parties, debut, anniversaries, seminars, trade exhibits, and other events. So, business entities engaged in this catering business may be organized as a single proprietorship, a partnership, or a corporation. There are no standard requirements for the accreditation of caterers by the Department of Tourism except when putting up a restaurant. So caterers are subject to value-added tax. Moving on, we have here the laws regulating sale of alcohol. So the law stated that the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997, as amended by Republic Act Number 9334, December 21, 2004, has imposed excise taxes on the purchase of alcohol. The excise tax rates shall be based on the classification of alcohol content as provided under the law. So, under the said law, every local government unit shall exercise the powers expressly granted, those necessarily implied therefrom, as well as powers necessary, appropriate, or incidental for its efficient and effective governance, and those which are essential to the promotion of the general welfare. So local government units shall ensure promotion of health and safety and maintenance of peace and order within the respective territorial jurisdictions. So, in addition, each local government unit has the authority to enact ordinances intended to prevent, suppress, and impose appropriate penalties for habitual drunkenness in public places and juvenile delinquency. Thus, each local government unit may enforce administrative orders or enact ordinances within the respective jurisdiction with respect to the regulation of the sale of alcohol to minors in bars or restaurants, violation of which may be a ground for the revocation of license by the local government unit concerned. So, we have here also the laws regulating churches, monuments, national shrines, landmarks, and other important historic edifices. So, the law stated here that by virtue of Presidential Decree number 260, August 1973, the following has been declared national shrines, monuments, and landmarks. We have the Santa Ana Site Museum in Manila, the Roman Catholic churches of Pauay and Bacara in Ilocos Norte, the San Agustin Church and liturgical objects in Intramuros, Manila, the Fourth Pilar in Zamboanga City, the petroglyphs of Rock Shelter in Anguano, Rizal, the petroglyphs of Alab, Bontoc, the stone agricultural calendars of Dapay Giday in Bisao, Bontoc. Next is the mummy caves of Kabayan, Benguet, Sagada, and Alabuntok, the Ifugao rice terraces of Banawi as national cultural treasures, the Barasuin Church in Malolos, Bulacan, the Tirad Pass in Cervantes, Ilocos, the Miagao Church in Miagao, Iloilo, and the site of the Battle of Mactan on Mactan Island, Cebu, the San Sebastian Church in Quiapo, Manila, and lastly is the Church and Convent of Santo Niño in Cebu City. So in this regard, it shall be unlawful for any person to modify, alter, repair, or destroy the original features of the landmark and other important historic edifices declared and classified by the National Historic Institute as such without the prior written permission from the chairman of the said institute. In addition, all donations to the National Museum and Archives of the National Historical Institute, including the equivalent monetary value of works of art, manuscript, books, or other articles of cultural, historical, or scientific significance, are tax exempt and deductible from the taxable income of the donor. Moving forward, we have the law on the vandalism. Vandalism, or what we call, or other known as malicious mischief. So the law in Article 3 to 7 and Article 3 to 8 and Article 331 stated that malicious mischief is a crime usually committed by customers, visitors, or bypassers in recreational centers, museums, galleries, cinemas, theaters, churches, cultural landmarks, and other related tourism sites. Security measures for the admission of customers and visitors must not be taken lightly and should be strictly implemented. So, malicious mischief embraces attempts against another property inspired sometimes by hatred or a desire for revenge and sometimes by the mere pleasure of destroying it. The crime of damage to property is not determined solely by the mere act of inflicting injury upon the property of a third person, but it must be shown that the act had for its object the injury of the property merely for the sake of damaging it. So, moving forward, we have the law on poisoning, which is in the Article 264, Article 265, and Article 266, stated there that poisoning is usually committed by employees of restaurants and bars in relation with customers. That is why policies set forth by the Bureau of Food and Drugs and those governed by the Consumer Act must be strictly complied with by the operators or owners to prevent this kind of crime from happening. In case of death, results by reason of the poisoning experienced by the customer, the offender will be charged with homicide. Arrestum menor means imprisonment ranging from 1 day to 30 days. Next is the law on theft. Article 308, Article 310, and Article 311. Usually, theft and qualified theft is committed by the employees of these tourism establishments. That is why caution should always be practiced by owners or operators of these establishments to stop employees from any means of temptation which they might encounter inside the workplace. Setting limited access to employees with respect to the company's money and other personal properties may be helpful. Intent to gain is presumed from the Intent to gain is presumed from the unlawful taking of personal property belonging to another. The basis of the penalty of theft is the value of the thing stolen, the value and nature of the property taken, and the circumstances or cause that impelled the culprit to commit the crime. Balikan sa may. Intent to gain is presumed from the unlawful taking of personal property belonging to another. The basis of the penalty of theft is the value of the thing stolen, the value and nature of the property taken, and the circumstances or cause that impelled the culprit to commit the crime. So that would be all for the chapter 10. I hope you have learned something. Thank you for listening.